Hi, I'm Kim Dykstra, Director of Communications for the Town of Breckenridge with the Town Council update for the Breckenridge Town Council on September 23rd, 2014. We'll hear from Town Manager Tim Gagan on all the highlights and what's going on, but first I want to let you know that if you want to find out more information about the Town of Breckenridge, you want to find out when our meetings are, kind of listen to the meeting minutes as we have them recorded, or see what the agendas are, we want you to jump on to www.townofbreckenridge.com. We also have a Facebook page, Town of Breckenridge, and a Twitter account at Town of Breck. So we look forward to you engaging with us. We've also got engagebreckenridge.com. Right now we have some information on there. We'd love to hear your input as to what you'd like to name our new park on North Main Street. So hopefully you can log onto there and give us your ideas. Next we'll hear from Town Manager Tim Gagan on the Town Council of September 23rd. So the last meeting of September 23, the Town Council meeting for Breckenridge, we talked about adding a ballot question to the citizens.
Right. This is the culmination of a number of meetings of discussion about the retail marijuana in downtown, in the what we call the overlay district. And the council at last meeting had directed staff to come back with some proposed ballot language that would essentially ask the public whether or not they agree or disagree with allowing retail marijuana downtown. The ultimate question that the voters will see on December 9th is a question that will ask, should you allow retail marijuana downtown with three restrictions, types of restrictions, because we can't actually define exactly what the restrictions are until we know the question, yes or no. And then if the voters vote no, then that essentially doesn't require any more action from the council, because all the current marijuana establishments, whether they're downtown or not, would have to leave downtown and can only occur outside that. If the answer is yes, then the council will have to pass a separate ordinance that will in fact put in place those restrictions. So for the voters, it's a pretty simple question. It's basically a yes or no, and it's going to be a mail ballot. So the voters will see something in their mail about 21 days before that election, and any legal registered voter that's been registered 22 days before that election is eligible to vote. For people that are already registered, they don't have to do a thing. Folks that haven't registered or need to update their registration, they can do that at the county courthouse.
Great. And so they'll be mailed, so people don't have to actually come to town hall or the county courthouse for the ballots. They will be mailed to them, anyone who's registered.
But they will be able to drop them off after they get them, so they don't have to mail them back, or they can, so they have a choice. There will be a ballot location basically in town hall for anybody that would want to do it physically to drop it off. So, and they'll have all the way up till that election date of December 9th to do that.
Okay, great. Glad that that's kind of put to bed for the time period.
For a little while.
For a little while. And at every town council meeting we have a public projects update, because we've got a lot of projects that are going on. One of them that's pretty noteworthy, especially this week that we're talking, is the Arts District preview.
Yep, it's just about done. They're obviously doing some fine tuning over there right now as we speak, but starting tomorrow, there is a series of events that are going to occur all through the weekend that are what we call the soft opening of the Arts District. It'll display all the new buildings. It'll have artists actually inside of some of them as part of the celebration. Some probably music out in the open area. It's going to be a very exciting weekend to showcase that Arts District, which is a combination of old historic buildings that have been rehabbed, along with other buildings that have been built to emulate those historic things. And my favorite is the two-seat outhouse. So if anybody can figure out where that's at, that means they've been there and they've looked around the whole campus. Very exciting, but no, it was the original outhouse that was back behind the Robert White House. So it's going to have a little bit of everything for everybody, and then right after that they'll start programming regular classes, ceramics, metal, you name it is probably going to occur over there. And obviously there'll be a lot of media attention to what are those classes, when can you sign up with them. But this was the accelerated program where the council decided, because this arts and culture is such a potentially strong tourist draw during the off season in particular, that they felt getting this arts center, the creative district as they're calling it, off the ground sooner would be great for the long-term viability of the community and offer more for our guests and our locals.
So Tim, I know that this was actually a project that you started when you first got here.
Yeah.
You kind of did. I mean, you started the whole arts district. You kind of bought the Seamus O'Toole's, which is now the Breckenridge Theater, and then the Michaelitis, Alpine Valley, Bridge Street Liquors.
The food
exactly.
club, yes.
So how does it feel to have that
15 years later?
Exactly. Kind of that dream just kind of like, wow, it's all together now.
Well, we almost forget, and when we do that many years of work of trying to get stuff done, and then it all comes together at the end, you kind of sit there and look and say, wow, it's kind of good to have it all over with. But I think there'll be some people really saying, great job. And already we're hearing it from a lot of the folks that are already in the artist community, and hopefully the rest of the community will come out and embrace it also.
Cool, great. Another public project that is of worth for all of the public here is what's happening at that roundabout and that median area that's just north of town, before 7-Eleven.
Before 7-Eleven.
Between 7-Eleven, yeah.
This is actually on the state highway, and the town has taken the responsibility of trying to make that a little bit more of an attractive entrance in the town. We tried an earlier version of kind of natural vegetation, but the way the medians were structured, they take a lot of abuse, and they're really hard to get plants to take and trees and those type of things. So the council has opted to go to a little bit more of an enhanced entrance, which will be a little less of the landscaping and a little bit more of the concrete poles, those type of things that you can then use during all times of the year to hang banners, to hang lights during the Christmas holiday. We'll be redoing all the landscaping inside of the roundabout itself to really kind of spruce up that entire entrance. And then long term, the hope is to go all the way down to basically Highlands, the Highlands Drive, and past all the way down to the 4-mile bridge, working with CDOT to put concrete, decorative concrete into the median all the way down to get rid of those weeds that tend to sit there, because CDOT doesn't have any money and they don't plan to do any other improvements there. So the town is going to take the responsibility to try to get it spruced up.
That'll be a great entrance into town.
Right, so the plan this year is to get all the concrete done. Then we'll shut the project down for the winter, so all 4 lanes will be open again. And then in the spring, we'll start the plantings.
Great, great. And it's usually once a month, usually at the second meeting of the month, we typically get a financial report, a full financial report. This one was the one for July.
Right. And July has continued the trend that we've been reporting on all summer. The sales tax continues to track ahead of budget by about 9% right now. Real estate transfer tax is ahead, accommodation tax is ahead. The only thing we saw was a little bit of a glitch in the retail, which seemed to drop a little bit below what we did last year. Of course, the good news is we had a great last year, so the retail did very well, but it was unusual given the number of people everybody felt were in town, and the fact that restaurants and other categories were up compared to last year. But there could have been some late filers too, so we're waiting to see if there's some late things that come in to see if that number improves. But other than that, all the numbers have been very good. Budget is under budget right now for the general town, and our revenue is tracking slightly ahead of budget. So all good news through the first half of the year.
Great, great. And then we had a couple of bigger issues that we talked to the council about. One that we've been talking about for a while. We did a parking study, and we presented the results to them a couple of months ago. And now the next step was for them to set some overall goals.
Right. This parking has been a discussion as long as I've been here. Probably,
me too.
and probably a lot longer. It's an interesting clashing of desires. The council is very much focused, as is the Go Breck, the BRC, the former BRC, on is our visitor experience the right thing? Are they getting around town the most seamlessly way they can? Are they finding, when they do need to park, are they finding the parking spaces that would particularly be in the core of town so that they can shop and spend money? And then we have on the other side our locals and our employees in town, and they have kind of the same desire to park close to work, and in many cases they're parking in parking spots that would be better used by people that are generating revenue for the town long term. So those two things have clashed for years. And so the council started a broad discussion to see how they could revamp or look ahead to revamping the parking and transit program in conjunction with the ski area to come up with one that really focusing on the best model for convenience, timeliness, seamlessness, so that when you walk out, you know what bus you want to get on. So that when you come into town, you can find that parking space, particularly if you're a visitor, and you don't have to go circle around 5 times to find out where it is. Technology is changing very rapidly, and there's actually now systems, much like our bus system now, where you can actually go on the web or on your iPhone and find out when the next bus is coming. So some of that's already changing, but we also want to do that with parking lots, and the ski area is looking at doing that. But it won't serve all the needs of the locals. Unfortunately, to really give the visitor the best experience, and even on top of that, to generate the best economic benefit for the town long term, we have to figure out ways to get the employees to take transit and or to park a little farther away than the most convenient spot. And so that's the big goal, is to how do you get there? And then the council's going to start getting into strategies. And the obvious ones that come up are putting more into transit, so we have more regular routes more often, so that people find it more and more convenient. The other one is that how do you discourage people from parking in prime parking spots on Main Street, particularly employees. So it's the start of another discussion that continues. And there's also a discussion about, do we have enough parking? I think generally the feeling is that if we had parking in all the right spots, we probably do have all the right amount of parking, or maybe could use a few more. But in general, it's scattered, which somebody said last night, well, that's Breckenridge. I mean, it's not one big parking lot, it's a series of parking lots. Well, that's more difficult for people to find. So it's a combination of all those things that the council will continue to talk about. And hopefully before the end of the year, we'll come up with a revised master plan, and then obviously have a discussion with the community about that, and then start looking at how we implement that over the next couple of years.
Great. And another, customer service. And again, I think there is a big push in our community to improve the customer experience, our guest experience. It's been one of the buzzwords that I keep hearing over the past few years. So this is one of them. The other one is the snow and ice in front of the businesses, especially along Main Street, but really everywhere, but specifically in front of Main Street.
Yeah, and this past year really brought it to a head because of such a huge snow year that we had. I mean, historically, the town has taken a great deal of the responsibility for taking care of particularly the sidewalks downtown. But we have an ordinance in place, and have had for many years, as does most communities, that say the property owner really should be maintaining that sidewalk. Well, because of the need to deal with the guests and to make it as safe as possible, the town has taken that larger bulk of the responsibility. But we found last year we can't keep up, particularly during the daylight hours when the visitors are downtown, because the heavy equipment that we try to use that makes it easier to clear the sidewalks, you really can't run that during the daylight hours. So the council has focused on what we call a shared responsibility. Let's get back out to the business community. And by the way, many of them do this already. The good businesses out there are cleaning out in front of their business every day. They want their customers to be safe. They want them to come into the front door. But not everybody does. So you have a patch of ice, and then you have a clear sidewalk. So the idea is to go out with the business community and the Go Breck group and talk to our merchants all the way along Main Street and Ridge Street and the side streets, and talk about the town taking care of continuing to take care of the responsibility at night, all the way up till 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. But once the public starts out on the street, then it will turn over to the merchants to take care of the sidewalks through the daylight hours. And then we would come back in at night again at 8 o'clock when the crowds go down, and continue to do the things we do. So it's going to be a new experiment, and the council wants to do it with a very cooperative and positive, how do we help the guests, how do we make the downtown more viable, more safe, and hopefully it'll be done very voluntarily.
Great.
And then so that'll be the first step, is to experiment with that and hopefully get great cooperation by our merchants. And then if that doesn't work, then we may have to talk about something that is a little bit more enforcement oriented, which we would like to have to avoid.
Exactly. So, and the solar garden, we have actually purchased a few of those panels and are now opening them up to the rest of the community.
Right. We bought a large chunk of the solar garden that was put in out on McCain, with the idea that there's many places in town, particularly downtown, the historic district, where you don't want a big panel on top of your roof, and it'd be better to buy it in a solar garden, get the same benefit. And we've had some success in selling that, and that was the first phase, was to sell some of those kilowatts to people that were interested in being green in the core town, and several people have taken advantage of it. But we still have a pretty good block of kilowatts left. I think it's over 100 or something kilowatts left. And the council says, well, you know, we've given enough time, and let's broaden it to the whole community. So we're going to open the door basically to anybody in the community that would like to buy into the solar garden and do it through that, as opposed to putting it on their home with solar panels.
Great, great. And they can call our finance department if they'd like to purchase some.
Exactly. Right.
Great. And then we had a joint meeting with the Breckenridge Heritage Alliance, one of our organizations that we meet with regularly. And this one was to really kind of talk about the projects that they've been completed and giving us an update, and then kind of some of the future projects that they'd like the council to help with in terms of financial, with the capital improvements. And so one of the ongoing ones that we have been talking about is the riling dredge.
Right. For people that don't know where the riling dredge is, it's an existing old artifact dredge that is up on French Gulch Road, about a mile and a half, 2 miles up from the Country Boy Mines. And it's well signed and already been designated by our local historical groups as a place to come interpret and find out what happened there. But over the years, the dredge is gradually deteriorating. It still sits in a pond of water. Much of the upper infrastructure has fallen down over the years. So they've been studying this now for a couple years, the BHA being our lead group that works on all the historical sites in town. And the report came back indicating that moving forward with some stabilization of the current structure today, maybe over the next 2 to 3 years, would go a long way to having what's left there survive for maybe another 50 or longer. And if we don't do anything, it will continue to deteriorate and could potentially lose most of its character that's out there right now. Now, when we say stabilization, we don't mean rebuilding the dredge, because that's very expensive, and most of the wood and things like that are all gone. In fact, much of the steel that was a part of it was taken during World War II and used in the war effort. So to replicate all that stuff would be very, very expensive. So what they're trying to look at is just stabilizing and preserving the stuff that's still left out there. So the council was very supportive of moving forward with that project, and the county. It's actually a joint ownership, because we bought that as a part of the B&B open space purchase. So BHA is going to take the lead. County will provide funding, the town will provide funding, our open space will provide some funding, and they'll start with the first phase of that stabilization, and then they'll do a little bit more study of areas where the water and the wood meet, which is a little technical, but basically where that line is, you get your worst deterioration. So there's some talk about making the water a little higher so that that wood would stay underwater and maybe it wouldn't deteriorate as quickly. So they're going to study that also. So that's the first phase of a very exciting project. And if you haven't been out there, it's just, I always like to take people bike riding out there, because if they've never seen the old mining day history, that's one of the great places to go do it.
Exactly, yeah. Another one would be the sawmill on Boreas.
This is an effort by a smaller group of the BHA who've taken very much a volunteer lead to actually to rebuild what was a sawmill at that location. So as you make the curve on Boreas Pass heading up heading out of town, it's also where the Blue River Trail goes through. They're actually building a replica of the old sawmill, and they've been able to obtain a number of old artifacts that were part of old sawmills, whether here or in other communities. In fact, they talked about one that was over in Leadville that they're going to be able to bring over here and display within this historical site. And so it's just one other aspect of our history that the Historical Society is trying to bring back to familiarize the community and our visitors with a great history that was here.
Great. There's the archive room that they've been working on that's actually going to be going into the new community center and library.
Right. We reserved one room in the community center, the new community center, for basically a lot of the historical artifacts that aren't the big stuff, but stuff that people love to see, books, documents, you name it. And we're working closely with the Summit Historical Society, or the BHA is, to bring some of their historical stuff from Summit County. For people that have been around, if you go into the courthouse, I usually have a little display of artifacts, and we have a display in Town Hall. Well, this will be a great location with the library and the other, the community room and the speakeasy. One other reason to go to that community center on some regular basis to see what is a part of our history and how it's interpreted.
Great. And then one last project, speaking of the community center, that's up on Harris Street. High Street, excuse me. No, Harris Street, excuse me, is the Milne House and the Evelyn Park.
Right.
Are fairly close to their kitty corner, but they're kind of fallen into disrepair.
Right. One of them is actually owned by the Summit Historical Society. The other one is owned by the town, the building. And the BHA, or the Historical Breck Heritage Alliance, has been interpreting those and taking tours to show people they're the original home and the original property that were there during going way back into history. But the building itself, because it's not owned by the town, there has been some discussion about possibly working with the Summit Historical Society and then the town or the BHA taking a more active role in trying to restore it and keep it up in good repair. And then on the park side, it basically looks like a weed lot. Now some of that is natural and some of that is how it looked back then, but it's probably a great little pocket park for people that wander through our community, particularly with the community center right across the street with its history, where people could go and literally do picnics over there and things like that. So the BHA is going to look at trying to how they can improve it, keeping the historic character of both that building and of that park, and try to bring it back to a little bit more active use than what we've seen in the past.
Great, a lot of great stuff going on.
Yep,
Thanks,
very
Tim.
exciting.
There you have it, all the highlights from the September 23rd Breckenridge Town Council meeting. We thank Town Manager Tim Gagan for his insights and knowledge about what's going on with the Town Council. We invite you to come back to another Town Council meeting. We have them on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month. The next one will be in 3 weeks. It'll actually be October 14. The Town Council work session begins at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. All are welcome. And then the evening meeting is at 7:30, complete with public comment. Again, visit us online at our townofbreckenridge.com or our Facebook or our Twitter or engagebreckenridge.com and get involved with your community.